you had a great weekend. Good to have you with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Bob Shrum going to join us in a bit, along with Congressman Jim McDermott. Now, one of the stories that's been percolating out there in recent weeks is about Joe Biden. Put yourself in Biden's position. Biden, nobody's going to run for president unless they think they can win or unless they have an unbelievable ego, and sometimes it's both. But I do believe in this case, Joe Biden, who has been a public servant for, over 40 years, I mean, this is who he is. This is what he does. And now at the end of his term as vice president, twice for President Obama, he's wondering, oh, gosh, what am I going to do now? I might as well run for president. Not so fast. Biden is certainly making a calculation as to, okay, what's my campaign going to be like? What I'm going to be asked? How am I different? And these calculations are going to bring in some pretty tough answers. Number one, he's just like Hillary when it comes to Wall Street. He's just like Hillary when it comes to trade. And I will think that Hillary Clinton is for the Trans-Pacific Partnership and TPA, Trans Promotional Authority, because she won't say she isn't. So let's assume that she is, and considering the actions of her husband when he was president. That aside, Biden's a good middle-class guy. He's not a wealthy guy. It's not a shot at him. It's actually a compliment because his focus has been helping people his entire career instead of going out and making millions of dollars. So now he wants to run for president. Well, the calculation has got to be, what are my chances? His chances are, well, Bernie is going to get the left, and he might get some independents and get some disgruntled Republicans who think, you know what, I believe in what he's saying on Wall Street, but I probably could beat Bernie. That's probably what Joe Biden's thinking. On the other hand, he's thinking, this email thing that Hillary's got cooking right now, this thing isn't going away. And it's not, I don't have to go out and say anything about it. Biden's got to be thinking that. I'll be asked about it, but it'll work itself out legally. Just listen to Jerry Brown, governor of California. This is what's percolating on her side. This continues to bubble up, and it won't go away to the point where Hillary Clinton is getting pissed off in front of the media. But look, this is a story. The FBI is involved. Okay? The Inspector General has said they want an investigation into all of this. Hillary has not handed over everything that she claims that she has. And the question remains, why did she have a private email server when she was working as Secretary of State? Here's how Jerry Brown calls it.
This email thing, it has kind of a mystique to it. An email is just an utterance in digital form, but it has some kind of dark energy that gets everybody excited. So I don't know how, it's almost like a vampire. She's going to have to find a stake and put it right through the heart of these emails in some way.
Now, the stake that he's talking about would be the truth. And with these polls out there continually saying that Hillary Clinton has a trustworthy issue is going to be something that the right wing is going to continue to pounce on. Listen to Carly Fiorina.
She's a hardworking woman. She's an intelligent woman. She has dedicated herself to public service. It is also true, however, that she has not trustworthy, that she has lied about some key things, Benghazi, her emails, her server. The night of the Benghazi attacks, we now know that the State Department and the White House knew this was a purposeful, pre-planned terrorist attack. Nevertheless, the next morning she went into the State Department and she addressed the American people and talked about a video that did not represent the values of this nation. Several days later, she said the same thing over the bodies of the fallen. What she should have said was, this was a purposeful terrorist attack and we will seek retribution.
Well, I'd love to see Carly Fiorina and Hillary Clinton go face-to-face because somewhere in between all of that and the two of them, we might get the truth on all of it. Now, if you're not a Clinton supporter, you're going to eat everything up Carly Fiorina just said. And she said some things I'm not totally sure of. Bottom line here is this all plays to Biden because that era of doubt that is out there is only going to help him. But I don't think that he would peel away much from Bernie Sanders. For more on all of this, let's go to Bob Shrum, Democratic Strategist. Bob, great to have you back with us.
Glad to be here, Ed.
There is no criticism of Joe Biden. Everybody loves him. At least every Democrat does. He's a solid guy. There are some differences between him and Bernie Sanders, a lot of similarities between he and Hillary Clinton. What do you think that is weighing on his mind when he's considering, in the Wall Street Journal reporting that, well, people close to him say that he is really close to announcing that he's going to run? How do you unpack it for us?
Well, first of all, I don't think he should run simply because she's vulnerable. If he believes she is. He should run because he thinks he has something to say. He thinks that he can authentically represent the needs of middle-class voters, working-class voters, and that he can appeal to them. He's got to make an affirmative campaign about himself, as you suggested earlier. I think on his mind are questions like, can I raise the money? And can I put the organization together? I don't think putting the organization together would be very difficult. There are lots of people out there in Iowa, up in New Hampshire, who are not part of the Clinton enterprise, who I think would be part of a Biden enterprise. He has some really smart strategic people around him, including, to the matter of full disclosure, my former partner, Mike Donnellan, who is his principal political advisor. So I think he's going about this in a very thorough way. I don't know whether he's going to run. I don't think he yet knows whether he's going to run. But it would be a whole new race if he did.
How so? A whole new race? It would peel away from Hillary or peel away from Sanders? Who would leave who they're supporting right now for Joe Biden?
I think he'd compete across the board. I think trying to put him in a pigeonhole here is a mistake. I think Bernie's biggest difficulty, and my other ex-partner, Tad Devine, is his principal political advisor. But I think his biggest problem is the Democrats really worry that he couldn't win a general election. Mm-hmm. And he's a bit poll-phobic and has not taken a survey that gives people some reason to believe that he could win. So I think that, assuming that Joe Biden was talking about some of these issues that Bernie's talking about, in income inequality, all of that, he's believable on this. And beyond that, he would be a joyful, affirmative, and as you put it, authentic campaigner in a year that craves that.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of reason for him to think about running. But the one thing he has to be ready for, if he's going to do this, is he has to be ready to lose.
Well, that's right. And here's another thing. There are some differences, and the landscape is different in 2016 than it was in 2008 and in 2012, as I see it, from my perspective. We've got a trade agreement that every single union in this country is against, and Joe Biden's going around peddling, saying it's the right thing to do. To me, I think that's a problem. Labor people tell me that's a problem. And that's why they haven't endorsed anybody right now, because they're trying to see how this is all going to unfold. The other issue is Wall Street. Wall Street is now the enemy to a lot of Americans. Now, it's ironic that we're talking about it today. I don't know if this is the beginning of a recession or just a major correction, a correction that we have not had for 4 years in the market. I'm not too concerned about it. Rich people aren't concerned about it because they're just going to hang in there because they can for the long haul. But those of the middle class who have got their retirement, who've got their education funds and everything else are kind of wondering, okay, now where do we go? The bottom line here is even Trump has jumped into this Wall Street conversation, talking about the hedge fund managers and how they're getting tax breaks, and he would, of course, take care of all of that. So Wall Street today, I think, Bob, is a different conversation than what it was in 2012 and 2008. Your take?
Yeah, I think Biden could clearly talk about this, make some serious proposals about it, would be believable on it. The trade agreements, that's a much more difficult situation. He's the vice president of the United States.
Yeah.
He's going to have some disagreements if he runs with the president, and the press will ask him right away what those are. But I don't think one of them can be the trade agreement. He does have a day job, and he has to do that day job. But in terms of the hedge fund managers, in terms of trying to fight for more income equality in this country, in terms of trying to raise the minimum wage, open educational opportunities to people, recreate social mobility in this country, I think he's a very believable messenger for that argument.
Now, the difference between he and Bernie Sanders is that Bernie, of course, wants to break up the banks. If they're too big to fail, then, of course, they're too big. Here's Bernie in a campaign stop in Salem, New Hampshire, just generically speaking about where the country is and what has to be done.
If you think about it, it is very likely that our country today, if you throw in climate change as well, probably faces more serious crises than at any time since the Great Depression. That's the bad news. The good news is that these crises have been caused by human decisions. We can transform America by making better decisions.
You know, this is an appeal, I think, that Bernie hasn't gotten a lot of attention for. He offers solutions, and he has a positive. He speaks from the point of view that we can do better, that we will do better, and it's the old word hope again. It's right in there. Where does Biden come into that mix as far as being able to communicate in that manner?
Oh, I think he's really good at communicating that way. I think, as I said earlier, he's he's an affirmative campaigner. I think he could talk about these issues. He and Bernie are not going to have exactly the same positions. But Democrats, I think, are going to sit there and say, we really want to win this election. 2016 is very important. And Bernie's great vulnerability, as I suggested earlier, is people doubt that he can win the election unless he gets to run against a Trump or a Cruz. And what happens when you introduce Biden into this, if he chooses to run, is Democrats can sit back. Some are going to be absolutely loyal to Hillary. She's still the odds-on favorite. Biden would be the guy facing an uphill climb. But Democrats are going to sit back and say, we have a real choice of electable candidates.
Sure.
And then I think that they rethink this. I thought the meeting with Elizabeth Warren was very interesting on Biden's part.
What do you think he's asking for an endorsement if he runs? I mean,
no,
would it go that far?
I don't know. I think he was probably asking for advice.
I mean, if you listen to what Elizabeth Warren says, who else can she support other than Bernie Sanders? I mean, there's clear differences here, and I mean, it's almost as if Bernie Sanders is the candidate that isn't in the race for Elizabeth Warren. I think
Elizabeth Warren wants to win this election. I mean, if you want to talk about inequality,
Bob, do you really think that Bernie Sanders can't be president? I mean,
I don't
believe
know.
that? Yeah.
I think he needs to go out and do some research, some polling, whether he wants to or not, and he needs to make the case that he can win. Look, this has been done before. In 1956, when JFK was trying to become the Democratic vice presidential nominee, and he was lucky enough that he didn't get the nomination, he circulated a paper written by Ted Sorensen that had a lot of statistics in it that showed how a Catholic could be elected president or vice president of the United States, because that was the big question that he faced. And Bernie's big question, a lot of people don't talk about it, and there's enthusiasm there. And we've seen this before, by the way, with Howard Dean in 2004. And then at the end of the process, or the beginning of the process, as people actually start voting, they pull themselves up and they say, does this guy have a real chance to win? And unless he convinces people that he has a real chance to win, I think his support will diminish. He'll tend to be more a protest vote than a real vote. Now, could he become a real candidate? Could he become much more than that? Sure. But he's got to make the case to people.
Okay. Final point. Donald Trump talking hedge fund managers on Wall Street, giving a hint that he would do something about Wall Street, something no other Republican candidate has even come close to yet. Here it is.
Well, they're making a fortune, and I want to take care of the middle class. You know, we had a tremendous rally in Alabama, and people came up and they said, you know, you're treating us fairly. The hedge fund guys are paying nothing. They're paying nothing. And what are they doing? It's one thing if you're building buildings. I'll take a little bit of something. Or you build buildings, you put people to work. These hedge fund guys, they move around papers. Many of them are... if the market goes up, they're geniuses. If the market goes down, they go into a different business, frankly.
Right.
They're wiped out. They go into a different business.
Donald. We've got Donald Trump now talking about the middle class, something Republicans never utter because that's all Obama ran on in 2012, and they certainly don't want to warm up to that. What do you make of it?
Well, Donald Trump doesn't have to rely on these hedge fund guys to fund his campaign. The entire Republican Party, from its Senate campaign committees, pardon me, through its House campaign committees, through most of its presidential candidates, goes to these folks all the time to raise money. He doesn't have to do that, so he's free to say this. And, of course, he's right on the merits. There are very little that Donald Trump's right about, but he's right about this. And so he's got a bit of a crossover appeal there.
He's going to be the nominee as it stands right now. No, nobody's going to. I mean, I really believe that.
Well, I would give him about a 20 or 25% chance of being the nominee. But I give him a real chance, and I have from the beginning thought he had a real chance to be the nominee.
Okay.
I think the greater likelihood is that in the end you see something like a Rubio-Kasich ticket on the Republican side, which makes Florida and Ohio much more difficult for the Democrats.
No question.
And really focuses Democrats on the question of who can win this election.
Great to have you with us, Bob Shrum. Always appreciate it. Interesting ticket. Florida and Ohio. Interesting. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you this production. We're right back. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com. www.biogreenclean and order today. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, President of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
Subscribe to the Ed Schultz podcast today. Simply log on to iTunes, search for Ed Schultz, and click the subscribe button to have the show delivered to your preferred listening device daily, free of charge. Rate and review the podcast and tell us how we're doing. More details at wegoted.com.
Oh, yes, it is free of charge. I'm not going to shake you down for $10 a month or whatever. This is what I do. It's on website, wegoted.com, rawstory.com, ringofireradio.com. I appreciate you supporting our sponsors and paying attention to the great work they do. Like Communication Workers of America, they are working to save our democracy. They've got a lot of information at their website at cwa-union.org. BioGreen Clean, Alliance for American Manufacturing, and the iSave team bring you this production every day, and thanks for supporting them as well. That's how we do it here on Ed Schultz News and Views, Ed Schultz News and Commentary. All right. You know, in the sports world, they say, well, we're going to take the best available athlete. We don't know who we're going to draft. You know, that's kind of what this Iran deal is like. This is, as I see it, our best available option. And I've read more, I've heard more, I've seen more interviews. I've even listened to interviews of former senators who are giving their take with no attachments to any of this. as to, what are we going to do? And Harry Reid's a pretty thoughtful guy. He consulted with, dozens of people and experts to come to the conclusion that he is going to support the Iranian nuclear deal, and he's encouraging his fellow colleagues in both the Senate and the House to vote no on the rejection resolution, or whatever you want to call it. Jim McDermott joins us, Congressman from Washington. Great friend. Jim, good to have you with us.
It's good to be here, Ed.
Is this our best available option as you see it, or where are we, in your opinion, with this Iranian deal at this checkpoint in this 60-day period?
Well, Ed, I've been reading and watching the whole world, really, not just the American politicians, but the Israeli politicians and the Israeli bureaucrats who've been in their intelligence agencies and nuclear scientists all over the world. Everybody comes up almost totally in support of it, because the alternative is so grim, and it is so unlikely that we're going to be able to go back to the table and get something better. I mean, this whole concept that, well, if we just hold out, we'll go back to the table, we'll get a better deal. There is no evidence whatsoever that that's going to happen. So that's why I think that most people who have done any thinking about this say, let's take this, and they've committed to it, and we'll hold them to it. I mean, It's not that everybody suddenly believes the Iranians, but we have no other choice but to go one way or the other.
Congressman, one of the things that strikes me is that Americans seem to take such an American view of this and not possibly putting themselves in the shoes and the lives of the Iranian people. Their economy has been decimated because of the sanctions. Now that this agreement has taken place, whether they want death to America or not, the bottom line is they want to live better. And when this money comes into them, it's their assets that have been frozen. They're going to have to pay creditors because they've had the government there has had to borrow to keep their function going. And so they've got creditors. They've got a society that is anxious for the basics, water, heat, infrastructure, a better life. And so I think we're missing that as a country, that this is going to benefit the Iranian people, not just give them a path to a bomb 15, 20 years from now. There's a lot of diplomacy that can go under the bridge between now and the next decade. I guess that's how I look at it that way, too. Your thoughts on all of that? What about looking at it from the Iranian perspective? What do they really get out of this?
Well, you're really doing something that's not very often done, Ed, and I'm glad to hear you doing it. That is, if you look at this from their point of view, the politicians, we have seen one guy try to work one of these deals. We rejected. We wouldn't even go to the table with him. And so what happened was we got Ahmadinejad, who was just awful. And so now Rouhani is in there, and he's got a chance, if he can produce something that appeals to the Iranian people, of keeping them on a much more positive track in the world. And my belief is that this is his best chance, and it's our best chance, because if we give him a chance to give his people a better life, you're going to have in the long run a situation where they're not interested in throwing bombs around. I think their internal politics often get lost, that he also has to run for election.
Yeah.
And if the Iranian people are not satisfied with him, he's going to be dumped out. Or if he's got to produce for the Ayatollahs, he has to produce.
I don't believe that these people running around saying death to America are the masses of the Iranian people and their Persian culture. I don't believe that. Just like if you were to take a snapshot of America, these people who are pissed off that the Confederate flag is coming down. I mean, I don't think that I think there's a broad brushing going on here. There's going to be radicals there. There's going to be radicals here. But the masses, I believe, want this. And I think the American people are being sold on something that I think there's a fear card here. I think this is the Iraq war all over again as far as a fear card that, if we sign on to this, it's our death warrant. What do you think?
Well, you're absolutely right. We have been subjected in the last 15 years to a constant barrage of people scaring us. There's an old maximum in politics that if you can scare people, you can get them to do anything. And that's really what His Eminence, the leader from the vice presidency, Cheney, was really pushing. He was making it seem like if we didn't do this right now, we were going to be destroyed in the next 15 minutes.
He actually said that if we elect John Kerry, we're going to get hit again. Yep. That's what he said on the trail. I mean, and he also said that you can't change horses in midstream, whatever the hell that means. I mean, they were throwing everything up in 2004 to get reelected. All right, let's go back to our politics. Does Harry Reid supporting the president along with Nancy Pelosi, is this pretty much a done deal for the Democrats? What do you think?
Well, nothing's ever a done deal until you vote. But I think that it's as good as it could possibly be. I think the president has put on a full-court press, and for the first time in a long time that I can remember, he's had everybody out there working on it, and I believe we're actually in very good shape. I find myself being more optimistic than I've been in a very long time that we're going to be able to hold it. It seems to me from just reading my emails from all my colleagues who are coming out in favor of it, that we have more and more people who are saying, hey, look, let's give the guy a chance and let's give the president his due for what he's done. And I'm optimistic.
Jim McDermott, always great to have you with us. Enjoy your I know you're not vacationing, but your time is off in August, isn't it?
Yep. Well, I just got back from being in Turkey, talking to people about what's going on in Iraq and what's going to happen. I really think that we got lots of other problems in the world. That's why we got to get this one put to bed.
Well, what did you hear?
Well, what you hear is that they don't think that the Americans are going to be able to solve it. I was listening to clerics, both Sunni and Shia, saying, you've got to give us a chance to start using our power here, and your bombing from the air is not going to solve it.
Really? So they're basically not, the Turkish people are not in line with what the Obama administration...
These are Iraqis. These are Iraqis.
Okay. These are, and you met with them in Turkey.
Yep.
Okay, and they are claiming that our tactics on fighting ISIS right now are not helping.
They don't see it as being helpful.
What's their suggestion, their conclusion? What do they want the United States to do, Congressman?
Well, they really think that we've got to agree to somehow get a government that is acceptable to everyone, and we're not going to get that by continuing to fill the air with bombs. That's the real problem. We're making more soldiers every day as we go over there bombing.
But what do we do about ISIS? I mean, what do we do about this radical jihadist group that is cutting heads off of Christians?
Some of that is we're getting a lot of. They think we're getting more media showing those things than really. They don't think it is so impossible to deal with. They say let us have a chance to work it out with our people, and don't make it worse by continuing to bomb that way. And there's no evidence that we're pushing anybody back. I mean, if you believe the people who are saying that everything is all better because we're bombing every day, you really are believing the propaganda that's coming out of the administration. And I just think we got to be careful of what we do.
Okay. Congressman Jim McDermott, always great to have you with us. I appreciate it. We'll do it again. Thank you, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, Jim. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary, brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. You can get this production at WeGotEd.com, RawStory.com, and RingOfFireRadio.com for free. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.